Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Harachakwadash. Double honors be to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone who rule well and have taught us this 100% truth. Much peace and blessings be unto you, hopeful. Let the push not this word of thought, truth, and sincerity to Ayuachim. I do say Shalom. On the Akhra, I'm coming up with a quick lesson going into the book of Genesis, the second chapter, covering the rivers, which initially that was supposed to be the breakdown, but in the previous lesson I ended up going off on a tangent, really through the spirit though, of Esau, Edom being wicked and his destruction to come. Which that was really the spirit too, because I had prayed to the Lord to let me make up a lesson for yesterday since I missed it, and to do a lesson for today. So hey, that first video was a makeup, and today, or this lesson's for today. So what I how about Hashem Shai for that really, but I wanted to cover the rivers because I wanted to do the whole breakdown, but I'll eventually do it later. But what's been really itching was the idea of covering the rivers. So Genesis 2:10, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became the four heads, which if I recall correctly in the book of Sirach, the 24th chapter is where it covers, it mentions the Jordan. As, and the men of the Lord had made a mention how Jordan is really that main body, and then you have the four heads you read about, which that word Eden, Idon, that's the name of the planet, a paradise to be. Because right now it don't look so hot. Right now this earth kind of sucks. It's kind of dookie, and you have one of the Akim going to how in the kingdom of the earth is not going to look at as it is right now. It's going to be on a whole different level, on a whole different spectrum. That surreality becomes a reality. It'd be like living on a different planet. So anything that has emphasis, to where it makes the mention in the New Testament about a new heaven and new earth, refreshed, really is what it means. Not a new planet, but the same one, just built different. I digress, however. The name of the first is Pison. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. Which that Pison would have to be the Red Sea, because contrary to Flavius Josephus, which Josephus was a Jake, and he got some good points too, but as a man of the Lord make the mention, he has a lot of flaws. He had made the mention how in one of those guys, it's like that the river, that the Pison River was actually the Ganges. He says it right there, yeah. And Pison, which denotes the multitude running into India, makes it exit into the sea, and is by the Greeks called the Ganges. That's going off. That ain't no Ganges, man. Which the Ganges is really a polluted river, but it will be clean in the kingdom. But we know that Pison would have to be the Red Sea. And why? Because it says it compasses the whole land of Havilah. I'll pull that Havilah on the Wikipedia. The Arabian hypothesis, it reads, in 1844, Charles Forster argued that a trace of the ancient name Havilah could still be found in the use of Aval, for which is now known as Bahrain Island, which Bahrain, if I recall correctly, it's a country. Archipelago Bahrain informs the bulk of the country's landmass while hosting the majority of the population. Okay. W. Mueller, in a 1992 Anchor Bible Dictionary, believes that biblical Havilah refers to two different locations on Western Arabia. Genesis 2 is region in Southwest Arabia. Genesis 25 and 18 is the Northern Arabian location, possibly Medina province. Which Medina is a significant area, which I'll bring out right now. But you can read on the full thing. You see in the map, this is Havilah, which is what now is modern day Saudi Arabia. And it made mention of where there is gold. Well, you got the Arabian Shield. The Arabian Shield is a major geological region in the western part of the Arabian Peninsula, which you could go on a map and you could see the stretch, if you will. I'll pull it out the maps. You can see that stretch, that shield, if you will, right there. Slovakia. So that, and this whole region, which pretty much is like half of Saudi Arabia, man. And down here, that's these two area or this whole area. These are two countries. With you have Oman and Yemen around here. Oman and Yemen right there, and then UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, things like that. But from like all this is like Saudi Arabia or Slovakia. No, this is Saudi Arabia. These are the countries, right? Yemen, Yemen and Oman, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait. But the whole highlighted area, Slovakia, the whole highlighted area is Saudi Arabia. So pretty much most of Saudi Arabia, it's the Arabian Shield. And this area, with Medina being around there, is where they have found gold. And they have the documents going back several thousand years ago of finding all that gold. Okay, so a major geological region in the western part of the Arabian Peninsula spanning ancient Precambrian rocks. It is exceptionally rich in precious metals and base minerals, anchoring modern multi-billion-dollar gold discoveries and large-scale commercial mining projects by the Saudi Arabian Mining Company. Alright, so ancient mineral wealth, gold, copper, zinc, and silver have been extracted from this terrain for over 5,000 years, famously including historical sites like the Ma'ad ad-Dabab, Cradle of the Gold Mine, which, actually, that name right there, Ma'ad ad-Dabab, that's Arabic right there. And that also goes to show you how, that also indirectly confirms the Lashon Kodash, because there's a lot of ah sounds, when you look into the Hebrew, because they're similar languages, so-called, Esau calls them so-called Semitic languages, even when you look at the alphabet, the Arabian alphabet, Arabic alphabet. Though the script looks different, the pronunciations are similar. Like Alif, Alep, Alap, right? Ba, which has two A's, but it's pronounced the same way as, or it's not pronounced the same way as Slovakia. It has two A's. In Hebrew, it has one A. In Hebrew, it's pronounced Ba, but in Arabic, it's Ba, like for cat, whereas in Hebrew it's ah for father. You also got ta, like ta in the Hebrew, tha, like we got tha in the Hebrew. If I remember correctly, there's ka, like the cha that we have, something like that. Or maybe I'm confusing that with one of these other letters. I forget. But you also got da, ra, but this is ra. Za, but this is Zai, or Zay, I forget how to pronounce it. Things like that. La, lamb, calf, ha, right? So you have similar pronunciations to the letters in Arabic. So that's more, clarification on Lashon Kodash, being legit, indirectly speaking. All right. Right, so that land of Havilah where there was gold, so it has to be Saudi Arabia, and you have Medina right there. It's one of the prominent cities that mine gold, if I remember correctly. Okay, where was I? Yeah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone, and the name of the second river is Gihon. Or Gion, Geon, different spellings, Slovakia. The same is it that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. Or Slovakia, one more clarification on Havilah. Genesis 25 came to mind. I think it was verse 18. Yeah, and they dwelt from Havilah on the shore that is before Egypt, as thou goest toward Assyria, and he died in the presence of all his brethren. So they dwelt from Havilah on the shore. Which, regarding the skulls, I made the mention, Havilah's like around here, or this is a Havilah, but you get the shore, the wilderness of shore would be around there. Located in the northeastern border of Egypt toward the western Sinai Peninsula and northern Arabia. On historical maps, it marks the desert region and it trends around the way to shore, connecting ancient Egypt and Canaan. you know, uh, you shore being around there, shore desert. You got the wilderness of Shore, the wilderness of Paran, the wilderness of Zin, all kinds of wildernesses. Um, East of the Nile Delta and the ancient Egyptian border wall. Right. Here's a good photo. Wilderness of Shore. So, yeah, that's right there from Abdulaziz. Go to Shore, which east of Egypt. East of Egypt. This is east. That's west. North, south. So east of Egypt. Wilderness of Shore. Northern border boundary shore in Egypt from ancient times inhabited land as he come to shore even as far as Egypt. For Samuel 27 and 8. Here Amalek attacked Moses at Rephidim, Exodus 17 and 8. Right, so that is more clarification on the geography of Havilah being, where modern day Saudi Arabia is. Yeah. Continuing on. And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same as that compared to the whole line of Ethiopia, which if you look at a map of the Nile, you see how it splinters off into the White Nile and the Blue Nile. As you go down south into Sudan, that's where it splinters. So it's just the Nile up in Egypt, which you may notice in maps of Egypt, there's lower and upper Egypt. Upper Egypt would be the south, lower Egypt would be the north, which is confusing, but really it's based on elevation, because it's more elevated at the south than it is at the bottom where it reaches, sea level. So it is lower Egypt because it's close to sea level, whereas upper Egypt is elevated. And the river only functions if it has elevation. So it originates from a high place and it trickles down to a lower place. That's how it's able, this whole river is able to suffice. Even though you see its origins go to Lake Victoria, Lake Kyoga in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Lake Albert, which encompasses a part of Democratic Republic of the Congo. And then you got the Blue Nile, descending from Lake Tana. Now, it made the mention how the same is it that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. It don't compass the whole land of Ethiopia as of right now on the current map. And why? Because, over time, boundaries do evolve. They either shrink or they increase. So that's modern Ethiopia right now. And the lake right there where the White Nile, it's like the Blue Nile descends from, it's right there. So it's located northwest of the entire land. But that's because, this account was written up in ancient times, right? Our forefather Moses. And going back to that time frame, Ethiopia was really smaller than it is right now. And actually, it's kind of smaller now than, 100 years ago or something like that. Because really, Eritrea was a territory of Ethiopia. But now Eritrea is its own, sovereign country. Right? So now it's like this. And really, Ethiopia, it was smaller back then, though. Going back to ancient times, when the account was written, Ethiopia, ancient Ethiopia landmass, or, political territory would, encompass this area, the highlands, the Ethiopia highlands. So therefore, it would bring to pass this compass land of Ethiopia. But, still regardless, you still see it's in Ethiopia. So, the Lord had it that way, designed it that way to prove the scriptures. And the name of the third river, and what's it called? Also, Gihon will be the Nile, because although, Josephus is wrong at certain points, he's also right, because he made the mention how and Gihon, right, different spellings, pronunciations. And Gihon runs through Egypt and denotes what rises from the east, which the Greeks call Nile. And this is also supported with history, because you got Hellenization, wherein the Greeks began renaming areas, right? Like Mesopotamia as a region, as an entire region. That's a name that came out about the Greeks. Land between the rivers. which before the Greeks, this region of West Mesopotamia, it was called individual names pertaining to like civilizations like Assyria. So, like in the Hebrew, Mesopotamia in the scriptures, more so in the Hebrew, it'll be instead of Mesopotamia, it's Aram Naharium, if I pronounce that right. If I pronounce that right, it's like Aram Naharium. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aram are the two rivers, basically. Nahar meaning river, Yam plural. The two rivers pertaining to Tigris and Euphrates. Aram, if I remember correctly, would be Arameans or Syrians, right, as peoples. So individual names, if you're living in this area, you would only identify as Babylonia, and you would also know Assyria if you moved up there. But as an entire collective region, it had no name until the Greeks, and that's where you have the name of Mesopotamia. And they renamed it a lot, like Edom became Idumea, Judah became Judea, right, so on and so forth. Which they was moving back then. They you read about that in the book of First Maccabees, the first chapter, man. Like with the customs, a place of exercise. That's where you get the gym. From which nothing wrong with the gym though, but the way they was doing it, man. Being naked and shit. And I was going on because the order that went out with the other episodes of the heart, when you're not really supposed to be shirtless, like that. Not even wearing shorts. Not at camp, and really you shouldn't be doing it in public, man. Though I know I can, still go shirtless on Instagram and whatnot when fitness pages and whatnot, But hey, modesty, man, especially with the women, which the scriptures concerning that. I try and cover up, man. Mostly wear sweats. At home though, I wear shorts because it's cool. But I try and emphasize modesty, coverings, cover my body. I digress though. So yeah, Gihon is now, and the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it, which goeth toward the east of Assyria, and the fourth river is Euphrates. Now going back to Mesopotamia, what's the only river to the east of Assyria? Anytime I know streams, and this map don't show no streams. It's talking about a river. Which, what's it called? You may use the same argument. Oh, this is a Red Sea, not a river. What's it called? The scriptures are the scriptures, right? What's it called? There's technically a river. There ain't no other Havilah, What's it called? So it's gotta be this one. But the only river east of Assyria would be Tigris. Actually, let me check something out. For more clarification. Yes, Hiddekel and the Tigris are the same river. Hiddekel is the ancient biblical Hebrew name for the Tigris River, which flows through the Middle East and is famous for defining the region of Mesopotamia. Alright, the modern and classic name derived from ancient Persian and Greek forms of the original Sumerian and Akkadian name, Indigla. Which, I want to see the name in the Hebrew. Strong's H23 and 13, Hadakwal, if I pronounce it right, Hadakwal. That's like not Hadakwal, that's a Kha, not a Ha. Hadakwal, if I pronounce that right. Rapid, one of the rivers of Eden, one of the rivers in Eden, the planet, really, which coursed east toward Assyria, better known as the Tigris, right? Yep, so you get the gist of it. There's a lot of proof on that. So there ain't no conspiracy theory. It legit is the Tigris. And the fourth river is Euphrates. I think there's like a Ephrath, I think it was called. Or I don't know. Euphrates has different names too. Uratu, blah blah. You get the gist of it. Oh yeah, that's the name that came to mind. Brath, right? But really historically, it's just always been Euphrates though. One of its names, right? And those are the rivers. That was an edifying lesson to the next Medusa Shalom.